Hi folks, Dan here with Main Sheet Solutions, and I'd like to tell you about this function that we've got here in the BOM tool suite that helps you project values based on the maturity of those particular parameters. So take, for instance, if you're in a project during product development and you have to project a particular parameter, uh, what it might be at the end of a project. So at the beginning of a project, you have a lot of uncertainty. Uh, at the end of a project, the product is fully matured. You have actual values, so the uncertainties are considerably reduced. So uh, what we have here is take a look at this bill of materials we have. We have this maturity column here, and you can see that it has a number of integer values here from 1 to 5. And by convention, that's the range that we use from 1 to 5, where 1 is the least mature and has the most uncertainty. Conversely, 5 is the most mature and has the least uncertainty. And so what that means is, so for instance, here we have in our user preferences form, we have the various maturity uncertainty parameters. We have the score, and for a value of 1, a score of 1, a maturity of 1, the uncertainty value can be plus or minus 0.3, or plus or minus 30%. And this might be at the beginning of a project, it might be an educated guess. It might be something you don't even have any analysis yet, but you might throw a number out there. It might be based on intuition. It might have some basis on similar systems, but maybe not exactly what you're looking for. And then you have a score of 2 where the uncertainty is 20%, plus or minus 20%. And this would be an estimate based on similar systems. Uh, a score of 3 is plus or minus 15%, and this would be a preliminary design value. A score of 4 is plus or minus 10%, and that might be actual prototype hardware. And then finally, a score of 5, where you have an uncertainty value of plus or minus 0.05 or plus or minus 5%. And that's based on the actual final design hardware, or whatever the parameters happen to be. It doesn't have to be hardware, it could be something else entirely. Also, these parameters you can tailor these to what you want. You can bump these up and down to whatever you need or whatever your program decides is most appropriate. And then you can save these as user preferences. So these are the uncertainties that we have assigned by convention to our maturity scores. So uh, let's see what it looks like. I have 3 uh, bombs here for demonstration purposes, and we're going to just do a quick simulation on what a project will look like over time. And so at the very beginning of a project, we might have a bomb that looks like this. Very simplistic, but just for demonstration purposes, we have this maturity column here, and all of the components have a value of 1. It's the least mature that you can be at the very beginning of a project. And we do have some values here. We have for this mass column, we have a number of values, and so the engineering team or the cost, the affordability team, they might be providing these early estimates on these parameters, and so you might get some budgetary estimates for a variety of things early on, but there's a lot of uncertainty. And so let's see what a maturity projection might look like with the associated maturity scores. And so what we're going to do, I click on the maturity projection button, and then I go and I select my mass column here, And I click OK, and then I click Insert Equations. And you see that it automatically generates 7 columns to the right of your table. The first 2 columns are the positive tolerance of uncertainty. So this would be the positive 30%. And then the second column is the negative tolerance. It'd be the negative 30%. And so the next 2 columns are the minimum and maximum projections. Okay, so for instance, the mass was 1.1. The minimum projection, you subtract 30% from that, you get 0.77. And then the maximum projection of that, you get 1.43. And the next 2 columns are the roll-ups of the minimum projections and the maximum projections. And so let's do a formula audit on that so you can see where that is coming from. So the top level is grabbing the values for each subsystem, and then the subsystems are grabbing the values for each of the components, and those components are in turn being taken. In this particular case, I'm looking at the minimum projection, and that's grabbing the minimum values of the minimum projection of mass. Okay, so that's for the roll-ups of the minimum projection and roll-up of maximum projection. The final column is actually the nominal value. It'll be, if I do that traceability here, it trees up in a very similar manner. Only it is grabbing the nominal value. You can see these blue dots represent the sources of the equations, source values for these equations are coming from column F. So you see here column F. Okay, so here we have, we notice we have a range of a little over 9 to 17 units. Maybe it's pounds, maybe it's kilograms, maybe it's tons. Our nominal value is 13. So in this particular case, we've got a range here and a nominal value. So let's take a look at what it might look like for an intermediate maturity. And so this is actually pretty more typical of a project where you've got a mix of maturities. In fact, this is the condition where most bills of material during a project exist. It's not the least mature, it's not the most mature, it's somewhere in between, and there is a mix of levels of maturity. Systems like this don't mature all at the same rate. And so you might have one component where we have the absolute final value. We just know this with certainty. This is going to be the final value. And you've got others where no analysis has been performed at all. And you have others where it's somewhere in between. You've got some parametric assessments. You might have some similar systems that you're using, and you can have a more educated guess, or you have a better value for a better projection for that mass is going to be, or a cost, or whatever the parameter happens to be. So let's take a look at what this projection looks like. We'll do the same thing. I'm going to select the mass column, and I'm going to hit Insert Equations. And you can see here the final roll-ups here range from a little over 11 to a little over 17. All right. And so you see the range here is reduced. So the preliminary value here, we are going from 9 to 17, a little over 17. Now we're going from a little over, or almost 12 to a little over 17. Now, this final bill of material, you note, has the maturity column. Every item in the bill of material has a maturity of level 5. And so that means that everything in this mass column is the final value. It might be a final range of values, but it's going to be the nominal value, at least at this point. So let's run the maturity projection here. I'm going to select the mass column, hit OK. I'm going to insert the equations. Again, the 7 columns are automatically generated. And you can see that the final roll-up equations are generating this range for this is the minimum projection, and this is the maximum projection of mass. This is the nominal projection. And so what you see here is a considerably reduced range between the minimum and the maximum. So between 15 and a half roughly and about 17, and with the nominal being a little over 16. So you can see that the range considerably reduced. The range went from between 9 to 17, and now at the end we're at between 15 and 17. So the uncertainty at the end is considerably reduced. But also note that we've got not just the range for the system, but we also have ranges for all the subsystems. We have the nominal for each subsystem and each component, and so you can look at each one of these and take a look at what that projection is going to be at each stage of maturity during a project. So there you have it. This is a tool that can be used not just for mass, but it can be used for cost or any other parameter you can imagine that you need to do some levels of estimation at the beginning, middle, and the end of a project. And if you want to understand what the potential range is and you have a good idea of what your uncertainties are, this is a tool that you can use for that. This is one of several tools, as you can see in our menu bar up here. Many tools that we've got here in the Main Sheet Solutions BOM tool suite. We hope you enjoy using this and find it useful. Thanks for watching.